little bit of an anonymous Q&A at the end, just because some people sometimes aren't always comfortable submitting questions. Okay, so fundamental attacking principles. The two main ones that you should know, and we're really only touching on this very lightly, are to maximize width and to maximize depth within the game. So ultimately that maximizes space. The reasons we do this, you're basically making the pitch as big as possible whenever you're attacking. Ultimately that's to make it as hard as possible to defend against you. So obviously defending against a larger space can be more of a challenge than if, say, you were attacking in a really narrow way and you weren't really stretching the pitch depth-wise. You would be a lot easier to defend against, ultimately, is the crux of it. I don't want you to get hung up on these principles. It's good for you to have the foundational knowledge, but ultimately, when you're working with the players you're working with, this is just kind of in the back of your mind as something to coach the kids, not something to harp on them, because you'll find a lot of them just aren't at that level to understand this at the moment. With that said, figured I'd put up this picture, which these are really, really young kids, and I don't think any of you will be working with quite as young kids as this, but this is pretty much what you can imagine you'll see. So if you go out on the pitch and you start talking about the principles of attacking and maximizing your width, maximizing your depth, you might be overwhelming them a little bit. Usually what you'll hear is spread out. And if you tell them, make the pitch as big as possible, that'll kind of help them to get used to moving away from their teammates, not necessarily all bunching. Like we all know, Timbit soccer has a name for that. So just bear it in mind. Again, to kind of pave the way for what we'll talk about tonight, the makeup of a training group is really important to keep in the back of your own mind. So you kind of work your way down from a team, which obviously is the maximum number of players you've got. In the instance of COVID times, we're not necessarily working with a team specifically, but kind of more of a training group. Within that, you might have units. So within a team, you'll have units, say your defensive unit, your midfield unit, forward unit, just different ways to break down that team and work with those sets of players. And then you'd also have your individual within each unit, you would have that as well. So quickly on the diagram, obviously I've marked those out, corresponding colors. So when you get the slides, you'll be able to take a greater look at that. Oh, apologies, skipping through. So again, tying this to the effective session design workshop that we walked through, at the individual level, things are a lot more technical. If you recall, we spoke briefly about players' ages and how that relates to both technical and tactical training. More technical is basically the what, so those soccer actions, soccer movements, and that will be the majority of what we'll talk about tonight in regards to focusing on individual players. So in the chat box, I'm going to invite you to just type in what you believe attacking to be and where does it happen. So whilst you do it, I'm going to let a GIF on the next slide just play through. I want you to take some inspiration from that, the play that you'll see in it, and just let me know, what do you think attacking is and where exactly does it happen? So I'll give you about a minute to do that. Awesome stuff. Okay. So I'll leave that to play just on recycle, but we'll talk through some of your answers really quick because they're very valuable. So Natasha started it off. started us off by saying making an offensive play towards the opposing team's net, 100%. You are trying to work your way towards the other team's net. Offensive, attacking, kind of synonyms, so good stuff. Colin, attacking is whenever you're trying to move the ball forward up the pitch and maintain possession. Yep, 100%. Keyword there being possession, which we'll talk about in a moment. The Quins, moving the play forward and in control, 100%. Good stuff. Attacking doesn't always look in control. So if I think of a player who doesn't necessarily look in control of the ball, I actually think of Paul Pogba, but he generally is in control. So just bear that in mind. It might not look 100% in control, but that player might be moving the play forward as is. Eli, attacking happens all around the pitch. Yep, thank you for noting where it happens. Each person can also perceive attacking in a different way. Totally, 100%. Different coaches even have different philosophies on attacking styles, attacking play. Audrey, when your team has the ball and trying to make a play towards the other team's net. Yep, absolutely. Emily, movement and possession of the ball, trying to move towards the other end of the pitch. Great stuff. Love that you've included movement, which is key really for making yourself hard to defend against. Samara, having the ball and going towards the other team's net. Great stuff. Alessia, trying to move the ball forward, keeping possession. Yep. Elizabeth, attacking, keeping possession of the ball and setting your team up to score. Yes, you're the first person that's actually said setting yourself up to score. So you're not just trying to get to the net, you're trying to score in the net too. Happens throughout the whole pitch. Yep. But to attack, you want to aim for the offensive third of the pitch. Absolutely. And James, keeping possession of the ball, moving it up the field, sometimes backwards. I like that. Thank you for including that thought. And trying to at least get a shot on goal every time. Love it. Okay, great answers, guys. Appreciate it. So briefly, just to kind of recap some of the common ideas, attacking is the team in possession of the ball. So it's that team who has the ball and is working their way and dictating what's happening at the moment in time. It starts as soon as the ball is won by a rapid switch from defending to attacking or a dead ball. So in that GIF that I had play, the attacking play was not glorious by any means. And I really honestly don't know why they made it into a GIF, but it works really well to show you how often there is a switch in who's actually possessing the ball. I think within maybe a 10-second period, there were 3 turnovers of possession. If you know what that's called, fire it in the chat. That rapid switch from defending to attacking, or vice versa. It's got the same name. The intention obviously is to score. It can happen anywhere at any time. And Eli, I really liked that you made note of the fact that it could look different for one player than it looks for another player. I can't quite remember who mentioned, but the ball could come backwards. And a lot of times today, what you'll see is to play the ball backwards is actually a big part of building up and trying to pull the other team towards you to make different spaces. So especially what you'll see with the littler ones, they might be really keen to just go forward. You tell them, okay, we're going to work on attacking tonight. And they just kind of get this deer in headlights and tunnel vision view of them going to the goal. And that's kind of where you see those players that don't necessarily want to give up the ball to play passes to other players, or they think, yes, this is the most direct way we can go to goal. It's not necessarily the case. And we have a really difficult job in the early phases of their development to actually teach them patience, other options for actually attacking and moving forward. You might have to go backwards to go forwards. You might have to go sideways to go forwards. We're trying to break that tunnel vision type thought process. And it obviously relies on individuals and units within the teams. So I think you guys covered all of those notions within your comments, so thank you. Alrighty, so next question. What skills can the in-possession players use when attacking? So I want you to think at an individual level, what kind of soccer things that you know of. So shooting is the obvious one. When you're attacking, you shoot to score a goal. But I want you to watch this next clip and just tell me some individual football actions that are happening when the team is attacking. So don't overthink it. Just think of kind of the fundamental things that you were taught whenever you were taught to play with the ball, essentially. And for those people that haven't necessarily played soccer to a high level, it's pretty much the same across different sports too. So just have a look at the clip, watch what the players are doing, and type some things in the chat, some actions that are happening, football actions. Love it. Dribbling, shooting, and passing. Love to see it. Field awareness, where the Roman players are, where the opposing players are, and where the net is. Great stuff. Audrey, different moves to win, 1v1 and get past the defender. Love it. Ball control, movement, footwork, spatial awareness. Great. Passing ahead to where the player will be, footwork, shoulder check. Yes, love to see it. Change of speeds, communicating. Should that video look like it was shot with a toaster, or is it my bandwidth? Ball control, being aware of where you and other players are. Moving in different formations, triangles, patience. Excellent. Graham, as far as the toaster goes, I don't know how to comment on that. Okay, so great answers. Love to see so many different ones. Did anybody else see a toaster? Raise your hand, or was it all right quality? I'll share the links too. No toaster. Thanks, Natasha. Good. Creating space for teammates. Yeah, great stuff, guys. Touched on many things, and you know, many of the things you've touched on are things that some of the coaches that we come through with, having ourselves as players, don't necessarily think about, or maybe we're aware they exist. Like I saw numerous people mention checking your shoulder, spatial awareness. That is so overlooked, and it's something that is probably the most important. It's more important than any of kind of your fundamental basic skills that you put down. So really great stuff. So these are some of the individual attacking skills that kind of come out of your education pathway. So if you go on with Ontario Soccer and you're pursuing a C license, they'll divide it into, this isn't an exhaustive list, but the majority of these will appear on that list essentially. And these are things that you'll have to be able to kind of break down the game and work these into your coaching. So your 1v1 attacking skills, I saw a couple different people post about 1v1 attacking skills. Great stuff. It could look totally different for one player to the next player. As I mentioned earlier with Paul Pogba, he is a super player at 1v1, but it looks absolutely nothing like Lionel Messi when he's got the ball in a 1v1, right? So Pogba uses a lot of physicality. He'll roll the defender sometimes, and he uses his kind of power and strength to get him past the defender. Whereas Lionel Messi, you'll look at, he'll use kind of a lot of footwork, a finesse, and agility to himself. And then you look at Christine Sinclair as well. There's another player who has a totally different 1v1 attacking style, right? It's not necessarily about ball work and the mastery there. It's about creating that little yard of space for her to get a shot off. So again, 1v1 attacking doesn't mean that you have to totally round the player with the ball. And Sinclair's a perfect example of that. She just needs that yard of space between her and the player so that she can see the net and get a shot off. Dribbling, pretty self-explanatory. Ball at your feet. This is more kind of change of direction, agile movements with the ball at your feet than the next, which is running with the ball. So running with the ball is typically done at speed. If you find yourself in a space that's opened up past the defender, you might look to accelerate and run with the ball. The technique in using your foot is totally different between running with the ball and dribbling. So dribbling, you might see more kind of side of your feet touches because you're changing directions fairly frequently. Whereas running with the ball, you probably are using more of your laces and pointing your toe to the ground. So you're pushing it and also kind of getting your speed up at the same time. Shooting, obviously, lots of different ways you can go about that. I hear a lot of people break it down into two, kind of you finesse your shot. So you curve your shot maybe versus having a powerful shot. There's really not just black and white. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can take a shot on. And I would implore you to actually have a look at some kind of footage of the top players and just see how different their techniques are, right? So again, you'll look at one player and they might have this ridiculous way of shooting. If I think of Cristiano Ronaldo, he can pull off a knuckleball of a free kick that many of us would look a bit daft if we tried it, but it's something he himself has perfected and kind of got down. So something to be aware of. Heading, you probably will not be working on heading techniques with the ball with your kids. It is important that they understand it becomes part of the game, but we're not going to send you out and expect that you're going to throw balls at kids and hope for them to head it back perfectly. Passing, there's so many different passes you can do. So long, short, lobbed. You get reverse passes. You've got you'll see people doing back heels sometimes. There's a lot of different passes you can do, and they can be changed up depending on where you are on the pitch, the different amount of pressure on you, what the scenario is. Lots of different ways you can slice and dice passing. It's not just that 12-yard pass from a cone to another cone kind of thing. Volleying, you saw that in the video actually. One of the kids, he came through and he had a half volley over the goalkeeper's head. So bearing in mind those were just 12-year-old kids or 11-year-old kids who were under 12, there was quite a lot of technical acumen there already, and it was quite impressive to see. Granted, it is the Man City Academy against the Dortmund Academy, so you probably would expect them to be a little bit more advanced than maybe some of the players you'll work with, but just recognize the potential is there to challenge the kids whenever you're training them. Receiving the ball, lots of times we do a lot of practice on passing, but sometimes we forget about the receiving side of things, which is as important. For every pass that there is a receiver as well, right? So it happens just as often as passing. And it's really important that you make mention of things like their body shape when they receive the ball, what part of their foot are they going to receive the ball with. The Quins, I don't know which one of you it was, mentioned about scanning or a shoulder check before you get the ball. So that will really determine in what direction or what way the player wants to control the ball. So there's lots that goes into that receiving element as well, and you can really dig in. It's a lot more than just, oh, use the inside of your foot and play a pass. Obviously at those younger ages, it is more about just getting that technique down to receive the ball so it doesn't fly away off their foot when they try to control it. But be cognizant that you can kind of build on these as blocks. Shielding, I mentioned. So again, if you've got the ball in your possession and you use your body to kind of protect the ball from the opponent, that comes in handy a lot more today. You'll see it kind of with your forward players as hold up. Ball mastery kind of ties in a little bit to the dribbling aspect, but it's not quite the same. So there's one event in the video I just showed you where the player received the ball and he did a little kind of different turn to get past the player that was coming onto his back. That all can be really creative, and a lot of times it's just improvised from different things that we've practiced with the kids over the years or different things they've tried out in a game situation. Crossing, pretty self-explanatory, and then aerial control. So there was one event in the game where the ball came in. I think one of the centre backs just kind of hoofed it forward, and he was a little blonde kid, I can't remember the number he was, but he just kind of took one touch, laid it off to the side, and the play just continued flawlessly. So again, 11-year-old kids plucks the ball out of the air and plays a pass with one touch. You might not see that in your own session, but it's important to kind of familiarize the kids with different levels of passes coming into them, right? So it's another form of receiving again. So what we're going to do next, I have a video, but I'm not going to play it for you. I'm going to let you guys watch it on your own actually. So what we'll do is a little task, and I'm going to leave you each on your own to work for, we'll say 10 minutes. I'd intended to do breakout rooms, but as I mentioned earlier, for anybody that didn't hear at the start, I don't have that capability on Teams today for whatever reason. So we'll do it individually. And basically what I'll do is I'll pop in the chat a YouTube link. You probably could skip to 3 minutes and 30 seconds and start watching it. It's an under 11 or under 12 girls football match from somewhere in England. I just want you to watch through and look for certain elements of attacking play. If there's any kind of individual coaching points that you can identify. What I want you to do is just make a note of the timestamp on the YouTube video of what that period of play was for that coachable moment. And then you're basically going to write down, I don't know if you're writing on paper, you're going to just have to type it up in an email to me later. But I want you to just basically look for a coachable moment. Tell me what time in the video that coachable moment is. And then you're going to say basically what the coachable moment is. So you're identifying a coaching point. So you're saying, who's the player that I think needs to be coached in that video? You're also going to say when it happens, so what exactly is happening in the video, and then obviously the timestamp. So are they high up the pitch attacking, or is it still kind of in the build-up phase where they're just playing out from the back with the goalkeeper? Like, when is the moment in the play that you want to coach the player? Where on the pitch is the play? So I'm expecting you'll probably be focusing on the player in possession of the ball. So it could be, okay, this player was in her defensive third and she was looking to play the ball forward to somebody. You're going to then say what, so what happened? You're going to say how you would suggest an improvement. So if they tried to play a pass through a congested area, maybe it's okay, could that player scan to see a different pass? Or maybe they tried to play a pass with their toe. Could you step in and say, okay, instead of playing that pass with your toe, you'd have more control if you opened up your hips and you hit the ball with the inside of your foot, something like that. And then you're also going to say why. So this is more a rationale. So that is, why would that improve the play? What would you giving that coaching point to that player change about that coachable moment that you've seen? So before I send you for 10 minutes with the link to watch the video and pick out 1 or 2 coachable moments, does anybody have any questions? How many different points should we identify? I would say 1 is a minimum. I would encourage you to identify as many as 3. You've got 10 minutes, shouldn't be too bad, but I want to see that who, what, when, where, why, and how of it. Do we have to write them down in the chat? No, so keep your own copy. So whether you're going to make it in a Word document or if you just want to type it straight into an email and shoot it my way, I wouldn't mind having a look at them just so that I can give you guys a little bit of feedback, and maybe we'll revisit this in a different session. I would have liked to pop these into breakout rooms to chat about them with somebody, but we'll just rely on you and let you guys kind of try it individually. So any other questions before I give you 10 minutes to just... Okay, so hopefully you guys have at least 1 coaching point identified. I'm going to ask you real quick, just raise your hand on here if you are done and back. Audrey's on the ball, Natasha's on the ball. Nice. Okay, good stuff. All right, you guys can lower your hands. Thanks very much. Okay, so is anybody interested in volunteering to give a quick synopsis of what they saw and what they would do to correct it? I know it's not ideal because we're not on a pitch and we're not all seeing the same thing, but is anybody looking to practice their communication skills? Just put your hand up. No, there's never a keener. Oh, Natasha and Eli. So Natasha, you can go first if you want to just...
Sure. So I chose the time 4:15, and it was the yellow center back who did this. Thank you. And it was in the kind of middle of the field. So the ball was passed from that defender right kind of across the body where she had a defender on her, and there were 2 defenders like right there. So it could have been intercepted.
Mm-hmm.
Which could have resulted in a 3v3. So how I would have, what the problem was that she didn't really have a field awareness. So, and also an understanding. She wasn't looking behind her. She could have passed it back in the future. She should have used her either the right defensive winger, so kind of where the ball came from, opposing team really switched sides, or just going back and towards the keeper, and then the team would have had an opportunity to reset and then rebuild. And I don't know if I was supposed to find like activities or anything they could do to do this.
No, but you guys are absolutely welcome to challenge yourself and put something together. And if you want to try that out and submit it too, you're more than welcome. It's a great description, Natasha. Thank you. So Eli, do you want to give us your breakdown, and then we'll get Leave as our third?
Yeah, sure. Okay, it was at like 4:58 in the video. Yellow was transitioning to attack, sort of. It was kind of like a back and forth, but they had the ball. It was the number 11 on yellow team, sort of midfield going to the bottom right towards red net. She received the pass and she kind of went on by herself. And she was kind of just looking down at the ball, kind of panicking a little bit. And she ran into the two defenders, and she could have looked for a pass, taken her time, sort of like went back a little and regrouped. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Great. Love it. Leave.
I was looking at player 5 on the red team, and I'm pretty sure she was a striker, but I didn't look that closely for that. The time was 5:33. It was in the attacking third, and basically the player received a good pass right in front of goal, which was a good spot. And she took her first touch away from the defender, so she kind of lost the defender. But instead of shooting, after her first really good touch, she decided to dribble, which led to her just being blocked by a defender. So she kind of just dribbled into the defender instead of shooting. So she should have taken the opportunity that presented itself and shot, because it probably would have led into a goal because she was right in front of the goal. And just like an activity that could maybe help players like recognize this opportunity is like you're getting passed into the box, and then you have to take either on your first touch and shoot, or like what she did on her second touch. So they're recognizing that they can take those chances.
Awesome. And Leave, not to put you on the spot, is there one thing that you think kind of caused her to continue to dribble? Like, do you think she was aware of the time and the space that she had to get a shot off?
No, I don't. I think she wasn't really aware that maybe she didn't have her head up, because basically what happened was like before that, like someone on her team had like received the gotten the ball in there like after a corner kick, I'm pretty sure, and like dribbled like halfway up the field. So the team was like in an attacking, they weren't like well organized. So I don't think she was very like prepared, but yeah, so she just lifted her head maybe.
Awesome. Great stuff. Yeah, lots of folks at the start had mentioned about spatial awareness is such a key thing, and sounds like spatial awareness could help your player there 100%. So great stuff. Nice one, Leave. And Samara, you'll be our last one if you want to unmute.
Okay, so my person was the goalie on the red team. What happened was the yellow team had possession and then took a shot. This happened at 3 minutes and 38 seconds, by the way. It was on the red team side, as I mentioned. So what the goalie could have done, the goalie actually kicked the ball and it went out. So she stopped the shot. But the goalie could have caught the ball or picked up the ball instead of kicking it. So she would have had time to get rid of it or pass it to one of her players so they could transition to being the attacking team. And if the goalie, as I said, if the goalie picked up the ball, she could have had a chance to transition the possession and where it was happening on the field.
Awesome. So would you maybe communicate to the goalkeeper that she has a little bit more time than she thinks she does?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Especially, that's a great point, Samar. Especially with young kids, everything can seem a little bit frantic. And sometimes we do just need to let them know, like, you have a minute, you have a little bit of time, and you don't necessarily have to rush the play, especially in attacking mode, right? So great stuff, guys. I'm super impressed. I would like each of you to send me along that kind of exercise we just did in a quick email. I put my email in the chat, but you should already have it. Just those key coaching points, what you've already spoken through. Even the folks who have been kind enough to unmute and share with all of us, if you wouldn't mind, just send that along and I'll have a look and get something back to you just in the way of feedback. But that's great stuff. Okay, so seeing that we're already a couple of minutes over, the very last thing we're going to do is we're going to hop to a quick anonymous Q&A. So you're going to go to slido.com. You may have already done this in part of your life, and then you're just going to type in that 6-digit code, and there you'll be able to ask any question you like. If you want it to be anonymous, just don't fill in a name, that's totally fine. And if there aren't any questions, then we'll just breeze by and I'll let you know what's coming up. Do we send it to you even if, yes, leave, please do. So what I'm going to share is I'm going to start sharing what we're actually going to see if there's any questions. Okay, awesome, first question. So I don't know if you guys can actually see the questions, but I'm seeing them. So what is the best way to tell a player how to improve on something? So in my opinion, the best way to tell a player how to improve on something is to offer up a different option. So you can certainly tell the player, like, okay, maybe you, oh, sorry, just didn't realize I was off mute. You could certainly tell the player, this is what I've seen, and this is something I believe you could do that would improve what the outcome was. So I would definitely give the player, I'd recognize that you can maybe see what they were trying to do. So you're telling them, okay, I could see that I'll go back to my previous example of passing the ball. I could see that you were trying to play a through ball and it just didn't come off 100%. I would maybe say to the player, something else you could do that might make that more accurate would be to open up your hips and to play the ball through with a little bit more force. You might have more success the next time. So I would position it in a way that you're trying to make them successful. You're not telling them what you did was totally wrong, because in some instances it might come off okay, right? So I'd position it as, okay, I've seen it. This is something you might look to do in the future because it might bring you more success, because ultimately players are looking to be successful in what they do, right? So it's a better way to position it potentially. But usually when you have a rapport with players, you'll figure out what works in working with that player too. So it's not one size fits all, but I would err on the side of offering an option to help them out. How often should we do drills on attacking? So this is a tricky one. Anytime you're working on attacking, there's also players who are working on defending, right? So say you're setting out, if I put myself in your shoes and you're setting out to run a session with a group of U9 competitive players, probably the head coach should have something in mind, thinking how many sessions they want to do working on a certain factor. Also, if you're working through a season, you might choose to work on attacking at certain times. If you haven't really been attacking the best, you might choose to have a session related to attacking. I wouldn't say there's any specified amount of time that you should do attacking, but at the end of the day, that's where you develop footballers, is being on the ball and working on the ball. So I would say just kind of follow your head coach's lead and understand why they're doing attacking drills when they're doing attacking drills. Okay, so just the 2 questions. I did get an abusive question that I believe came from Graham saying what happened at Old Trafford today, which if you guys don't know, look that up on the news. So not wanting to take any more of your time up this evening, but hoping you got plenty out of the session tonight. I will share the slide deck and I'll send that out by email, but we also are storing these recorded sessions on the club YouTube, so you can watch any of them back if you choose to. Additionally, Tuesday night we have, oh, there is a question. Will we have a defensive session? Yes, absolutely. We'll go through the same kind of talk. And this isn't to be exhaustive in attacking. There's lots more to talk about in attacking. This is just kind of your basic, how could I help an individual with regards to attacking. So yeah, we'll definitely do a defensive session and we'll do more attacking stuff, hopefully at some point on the pitch. That would be a fun education piece rather than through your computer. But yeah, Tuesday night we do have an additional, we have a guest coming basically to speak about nutrition. So she's got a really impressive resume with regards to nutrition education and actually working with lots of high performance athletes, I believe. So that will be in TeamSnap, and hopefully we'll see lots of you there, because I think it'll be a really great session and I'll be on there learning myself. So unless we have any more questions, either through Slido, nope, no more through Slido, any more through the chat. Peak performance, thanks Graham. Graham's just pasted in the link to her website prior to the Tuesday session if you want to check her out before then. So shoot me your emails with that task that we worked on today. And besides that, I wish you guys a really great rest of your Sunday and a nice week. Thank you.